Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Patrick Harrison, an ex PwC accountant turned high performance coach, entrepreneur, and Ironman triathlete. Like many ambitious people, Patrick followed the path that looked successful on paper: prestigious career, promotions, and all the external markers of achievement. But one late night in the office brought a moment of clarity that changed the course of his life. He realized there had to be more to life than constantly chasing the next milestone. His perspective is shaped not only by business and performance, but also by his spiritual journey as a Muslim convert and his life with his Palestinian wife, giving him a unique lens on purpose, meaning, and what it truly means to live well. Patrick, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you very much, Joy. Thank you for having me and for the very kind introduction.
All right, you're welcome. So, yes, Patrick, can you take us back to your early years, basically? So, what was
Mm,
it like growing up, and what experiences shaped who you are today?
sure. So I had quite an ordinary background. So I grew up here in England, in London. I went to Edinburgh University where I studied, and I then started my career, my professional career as an accountant, as you shared, Joy, in the introduction at PwC. And it seemed like the sensible decision. My dad had been an accountant, my granddad had been an accountant. It was a job that I was told would be stable. Everyone always needs accountants, and that is absolutely right. And I was told and believed at the time that it was a good route to go down. And I still today do believe that it was an important part of the journey that led me to where I am today. So I took that sensible decision and became an accountant. And I enjoyed it. I always talk very fondly of my time at PwC. I enjoyed it. I worked hard. But as you shared there was a moment of real clarity that I had when working one night, late into the night. I was in audit and we were doing the audit of a bank. And I sat there in this meeting room looking around and I was exhausted. I was stressed. And in my life, I felt really time poor. I was working late into the evenings. I was working on the weekends. I wasn't really exercising at all. I was drinking caffeine to just keep me going. I wasn't sleeping particularly well. And I had this sudden realization that night when I was working late that there has to be a better way than this. There has to be more to life than this. And my life wasn't bad. My life was very good. But I was thinking in that moment that it must be better than this. There must be a better way. And that then sort of led me down a bit of a path where I then discovered the world of well-being and high performance. And I began listening to a few podcasts, and there was one podcast in particular, Dr. Matt Walker, a sleep scientist, author of Why We Sleep. And I never really thought about sleep as something that we should actively try and improve. I thought it was just something that just happens and you just try and squeeze it in whenever you got time. But I listened to his podcast. He made quite a convincing argument to prioritize it. So I said, okay, I'll try a few things that he suggested here. And then after a couple of days, I noticed that I just felt so much better. I was more focused, more productive. I was getting more work done and better work done in less time. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. How else can I improve? What else can I improve? So then I looked after sleep. It was then exercising more and then sort of meditation, journaling, all of these wellness habits. And I saw a huge improvement in my life. And then I started to discover the world of coaching and then of sort of high performance coaching. And after what was 5.5 years, I believe, at PwC, I then made the decision to leave PwC and to become a full-time coach, which was a big leap at the time. I'd done my coaching qualifications on the side of my job at PwC. It was a demanding, not quite 9 to 5. It was a bit longer than that job at PwC, and I was squeezing in my coaching qualification hours between that and building coaching as a bit of a side hustle while I was still at PwC. And then after about a year of that, which would have been about 5.5 years at PwC, I then made the leap to leave PwC and go full-time coaching and joined a coaching company for a year. And then in August of last year, in 2025, I co-founded my company with my business partner, Jack, Wildest Dream, which is all about coaching and helping individuals to live more meaningful and purposeful lives.
Hmm. Wow. All right. So first of all, thank you, Patrick, for sharing your story with us today. And like you said, it's all about individuals living a meaningful and purposeful life. Right. So first of all, I want us to, touch on high performance without burnout, basically. So you coach
Mm,
high performance, right? So how do you
yes.
define high performance differently from the way society often does?
Mm. I think traditionally, society, we see high performance as pushing as hard as we can, as just grinding through. Perhaps the sort of David Goggins approach, if yourself, Joy, and your listeners have heard of him, it's just keep hustling, keep pushing, sleep when I'm dead sort of mentality.
Mm,
And it was a mindset that I adopted early on as well, being quite a driven young man. I thought that that's what I need to do in order to get that promotion at PwC, in order to eventually get to partner, which is what, when I started PwC, is what I thought I wanted. And so that's the traditional model of high performance, where you need to keep pushing, pushing, pushing. But what I've learned over the years and what I coach the companies that we work with across the globe and the individuals that I work with as well around high performance is that it's not all about grinding through. Like, yes, as high performers, we need to stretch ourselves. We need to challenge ourselves. We need to get out of what we call our comfort zone into our growth zone. We need to do hard things in order to grow. That is absolutely true. And at times that necessitates doing things that we don't feel like doing. And that is part of high performance. But an equally
mm,
important and often forgotten part of high performance is actually the rest and recovery. And there's a formula that I love to share, which is stress plus rest equals growth. I think a lot of high performers get the stress element right. And stress here isn't necessarily bad stress. There's such thing as good stress, which is positively challenging ourselves. High performers usually have that nailed down. Stress isn't the problem. It's actually the rest. Because if we just have stress and no rest, then we do not grow or we plateau or at worst, we burn out. But if we can stress ourselves and then have sufficient rest and recovery around sleep, around nutrition, around all those other important things that enable us to rest and recover, time on the weekends with friends, with family, then we can grow even more. And I think that's something that's often forgotten and something that I bring to the coaching that I do is yes, stress, but also rest.
mm. Wow. Okay, usually people would say don't stress at all, right? But I like that
Mm,
you consider that uh, we can actually stress, but we also need to prioritize rest, right? That way, like you said, stress plus rest equals growth, right? That way we could actually grow. Because I had a guest one time who was neurodivergent, right? So telling them to stop stressing is almost like telling them to kill themselves, right? You
mm,
cannot tell him to stop working. Working is his life, basically. But he worked so much that he got burnt out, right?
okay.
So people like that, what you can tell them to do is you can stress, right? But how about you rest also? And that way you get to grow. And instead of becoming, a high achiever, you could be a
Mm,
balanced achiever, right? You could
mm,
achieve what you want and just, still be okay and healthy, basically. So, yeah.
exactly. Exactly. It's a really important point actually that I think often we see stress as bad. Like the word stress we associate with something that is bad and undesirable and something we should be avoiding. But it's actually a lot more nuanced than that because as I said there's good stress and there's bad stress. So you don't we don't want to become chronically stressed, which is that consistent feeling of overwhelm where we struggle to switch off at night, that sort of tired but wired. Physically we're exhausted, but mentally when we get into bed, our mind's still racing. That is chronic stress. That's when our cortisol is too high for too long. And our stress system hasn't designed to be on for long periods of time. So chronic stress is, yes, that's bad for us. We do not want that. We should avoid chronic stress. But then on the other side, there's good stress. And this can look in many different ways. So, for example, putting your hand up to take on a more challenging project at work, or an ice bath, a hard workout, public speaking. These are all positive, good stresses because they are going to stretch us. And then from that, we are going to grow. So the key here is to first distinguish between good stress and bad stress and think, okay,
Mm.
what's that bad stress in my life? What's contributing to the bad stress? How can I eliminate those stresses? And how can I identify and then lean into the good stresses? Because as we said there, it's the stress plus stress equals growth. We need that stress in order to grow as high performers, but we want to make sure that we don't become chronically stressed.
Exactly. Wow. Okay. Like you said, positive stress and negative stress, right? So we should
Mm,
try and be able to, identify which is bad and which one is good, basically. And it's actually very important to identify them because we could actually misplace bad stress for, for, good stress.
mm.
And then at the end of the day, we get burned out. So, yes, thank you for, sharing that wonderful insights with us today. Another thing I want us to, touch on is Wilder's dream, right? And
Yes.
purpose-driven living, basically. So, what inspired you to, co-found Wilder's dream?
Mm. So the name and idea for Wildest Dream came out of a conversation actually. So it was a conversation with Jack, my co-founder, who also worked at this coaching company that I worked at for a year. He was based out in Asia and Thailand, helping them grow their business there, and I was doing the same here in the UK. And we led some high performance retreats together in Thailand with sort of young leaders from across the world. That was really cool. So we worked together, we got on really well, we've become great friends. And we were having a conversation. It was Jack and I, another one of our great friends, a guy called Jason, and another guy on a call who's based out in China, one of Jack's friends from London Business School. And we were having a conversation, and Jack asked, "So guys, what are your goals this year?" And we all kind of reeled off our goals. And Jack wasn't very happy with the answer. He wasn't very satisfied. He felt that we were holding something back. So then he said, "Okay, if those are your goals, what is your wildest dream?" And boom, the shackles are off. And people were describing a vision of a future that they dreamed of that was incredible and inspiring. And people were talking about their dream job and their dream house and family, kids, all of these things. And we came away from that conversation, and Jack and I were saying, wildest dream. Like when you ask that question, what is your wildest dream? It just unlocks so much in people. And all credit to Jack, because Jack then kept driving it forward. And then we basically had a conversation and we said, okay, let's go do our own thing. Let's set up a coaching business more specifically aimed at supporting younger people in their 20s, 30s to find more meaning and purpose. And then Jack said, let's call it Wildest Dream. And I thought, fantastic, let's do it. So that's the origination of Wildest Dream. And today, what that looks like is we work with individuals, we do some work with companies as well, and we do work with groups, we run community events here in London. And as I shared there, it's all about helping people find meaning and purpose in their lives. Because Jack and I had this insight, which perhaps you've seen as well, Joy, and I'm sure your listeners have seen as well, is that so many people in their 20s and their 30s, and I was one of them, are living lives that on paper are successful. Their CV looks great. They've achieved all the
Mm,
things that society tells them they should achieve in order to be happy. And yet something's missing. And
mm,
that something is often meaning and purpose in their life. So we then help
mm,
people unlock more meaning, more purpose to live successful lives, but achieving a version of success that is true to them and not just one that society tells us we should seek.
mm. Wow. Okay. All right. Wildest dream. Now I'm
Mm.
curious to, try out mine, but I think I need to cool down a bit.
Yeah,
So,
what no, Joy, I'd love to explore that. What comes to mind when I ask you what is your wildest dream?
okay, it's traveling, right? I would love to actually travel like a whole lot of countries, basically. So it's one of my wildest dreams.
Okay, traveling.
Yes.
Mm. Okay, cool. Where would you want to travel, Joy? In your wildest dreams? What's that one place?
Paris. I'd love to go to
Mm.
Paris.
To where,
In
sorry?
Paris, basically.
Paris. Ah,
Uh,
okay.
right. Uh, well, Okay. Wildest dreams. Okay, so
Mm,
now I'm curious, right? How does, this your wildest dream roadmap, how does it now help people create the life that they
mm,
genuinely enjoy?
yeah. So our roadmap, our Wild Stream
Hmm.
roadmap is essentially it's our goal setting document that we designed. But it's much more, well, I'm quite biased. We believe it's much more than just many other goal setting documents out there. And it's what we use with all the guys and girls we work with. And basically,
Hmm.
it's a poster. And on that poster, it's split into three main sections, which is our three Wild Stream chapters. So, chapter one is Know Thyself. It's all about understanding who you are. Chapter two is Know Thy Path, which is all about understanding where you want to go. And chapter three is Know Thy Steps, which is understanding how to get there. And to break that down a little bit for you, so Know Thyself, the first chapter, here we have values, strengths, passions. So, what do you value? What are your strengths? What are you passionate about? And I think often people miss this first step when it comes to goal setting. They just jump straight to the goals. And they say, okay, what do I want to achieve? But if we don't take the time to think about what we actually value, what our strengths are, and what we're passionate about, essentially who we are, then the goals that we set quite likely won't be aligned with what we actually want. Whereas if we go through that first chapter, understand who we are first, then we can set some meaningful goals in alignment with that. And so then coming to that second chapter, know thy path, what we then do is we'll sit down and I'll say, okay, for example, Joy, if I was taking you through your roadmap, I'd say, Joy, if your life was a pie and there were four slices to it, what would those four slices be? And quite often we see people say career, health, relationships, finance, adventure, hobbies. It's any four that are
Hmm.
meaningful to you. We call these your four fulfillment areas. And then in each of these four fulfillment areas, say that we've taken career as an example, we then have the vision. So we're now in 2026, we have the end of 2026 vision. And I'll say to you, okay, Joy, in your career, what's the vision for 2026? By 31st December this year, what do you want your career to look and feel like? That's your vision. And then we come down from vision to goals. So these are the milestones, the tangible, measurable targets that you want to hit in order to move towards achieving your vision for this year. And then we bring it down one extra layer. And I think this is a really important and often overlooked layer, which is what we call tactical actions. And these are the daily, could be weekly, maybe monthly behaviors or habits that will move us towards achieving our goals. Because I think often we think about maybe the vision, the grand vision for our life and the big goals, but people don't take the time to stop and think, yeah, but okay, what am I going to do on Monday morning? What am I going to do each day to actually move towards my goals and my vision? So that's how we break it down: vision, goals, tactical actions in each of your four fulfillment areas of your life. That's know thy path. And then we come to know thy steps, which is basically understanding how to get there. So, in order to achieve these goals and this vision, in order to execute on those tactical actions, we need a clear plan, which we split into three areas. So, the first is mindset. And that's what's the empowering mindset you want to have this year? Maybe it's a mantra. Maybe it's something to tell yourself, a quote, maybe when times get tough. What is that mindset, empowering mindset you want to maintain this year? And then we go from mindset to energy. Because it's one thing having great ambition and goals, but if you don't have the energy to actually execute on the day to day to get there, then we won't make any consistent, meaningful progress. So energy is all about managing your energy. And what we were talking about earlier around stress and all the high performance coaching that I do, huge part of it is around that energy management. So what are those things that energize you? And what are those things that drain you? And how can we remove the drainers and increase the energizers? And then we come to our weekly habit stack. So that's the third element of Know Thy Steps: mindset, energy, habits. And that's what are those key habits that get you feeling and at your best. It might be, for example, meditation, journaling. It could be any habit that gets you feeling and performing at your best each day. So that is our roadmap across the three chapters there, and that's what we do with the each of the guys that we sit with. We help take them through that and help them build it for their future.
Hmm. Wow. Okay, so thank you, Patrick. And just so you know, I was taking notes, right? First of all, you said know thyself,
Yes.
or know thy path, and also know thy plan, right?
Know
And
thy steps, but
know
very,
thy
very close, Joy. Yeah.
okay, steps. And then under the path, you said it's about having a vision, a goal, and a tax collection, right?
Yes.
And then, yes, we need to have a plan. Under that plan covers the mindset, energy,
Mm,
and the habits, basically.
yes.
Whew. Okay, all right. Thank you for, sharing this wonderful one with us. Personally, I'm going to adopt it, right, and, put
Mm,
it in my daily life. And I hope my listeners would be able to, do the same as well. So yes. And I'm
fantastic.
curious, right? Because all this is just to, live a meaningful life, a successful life according to you, not, society. Right.
Mm,
So now to you, Patrick, what does a meaningful life look like to you, or what is success to you, basically?
that's an excellent question, Joy. And before I answer that, just quickly on the roadmap. So we give out our roadmap for free. It's on our website, www.wildestream.com. People can go there, they can grab the roadmap, and they can download it. So I just wanted to share that with with yourself, Joy, and all your listeners that we share it for free, and the roadmap's there for anyone to download if they'd like to build it out. So what your question there, Joy, is what makes a meaningful life for me? What does success look like? So I'll tell you first what I thought success should look like. So in my early 20s, starting in the corporate world, I thought for me, success was getting the next promotion, getting the next pay rise, working my way up the corporate ladder. And now I see success in slightly different way. So for me, success is not just about what you're achieving, but it's about the work that you're doing. So for me as an accountant, I mean, I didn't hate accountancy. I actually quite liked it, but I knew that accountancy was not my calling. I'll tell you that. Whereas now, coaching, I feel that is my calling. Like the work that I'm doing, I love. Like I wake up each morning and I'm excited to do what I do. Like, not every day is easy. Quite a lot of days are hard as an entrepreneur. There's many challenges, and the security and comfort that you get with the corporate world is something that I lost, and maybe a conversation for another day, but that is something that's been incredibly challenging. So it's not always easy, but I get to wake up each day and do what I love, which is an incredible gift. And so for me, success is doing work that's meaningful to you. And before I just thought it was being successful in whatever role you might find yourself in. Whereas now I think success is actually doing work that's meaningful and important to you. And I think the beautiful and irony of this is also that when we find and begin to do work that we inherently enjoy and that is meaningful to us and where we feel like we're contributing something to the world, we are going to perform so much better in that than trying to do something that we don't enjoy. Because we are inherently going to be so much more motivated to do work that we love than work that we don't love. And when we have that extra motivation, that love for what we do, the quality of the work is going to be better. What we can contribute to the world is going to be better. So success, as I see it now, is almost a beautiful side product of doing meaningful work. So for me, that's success in the sense of my career, and also I used to see success as just career, but now I see success, sorry, as holistic, and that's why in the roadmap, which I shared earlier, we have four fulfillment areas because it's not just about being successful in your career. So for me, success is also having great relationships with my wife, my family, my friends. This was another mistake I made in my 20s, which was that I didn't spend enough time with my close mates. And looking back now, it's something that I should have done, something I should have prioritized. So for me now, that is something that's super, super important to me is no matter how busy I might feel or think that I am, is to always make time for my closest friends and for my family and for my wife. So that's really important. And also success to me as an athlete as well. And you mentioned introduction joy. I do Ironman training and racing and compete in races all over the world. I've got my next race in Sweden in 3 weeks' time. So success to
Hmm.
me as an athlete is challenging myself and stretching myself And it's perhaps not comparing myself to other athletes, which I used to do perhaps, but now it's just, am I growing? Am I getting better? Am I learning? That for me is success as an athlete. And I think once we do that, then the podiums, the victories, they come as well. So,
Hmm.
so that for me is success. It looks holistic, and just bringing that down into what a day looks like. It's waking up, it's doing meaningful work, and then it's finishing for me around 6 p.m., spending time with my wife at home. And in the morning, it's doing my triathlon training. And then on the weekend, it's spending time with my family and friends. That for me is success.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. All right. So yes, and success. This is for the listeners actually. Success differs according to different individuals actually. But what is more important is doing what makes you genuinely happy, right? That is what we would call success, right? And you've mentioned, yes, triathletes, being married to a beautiful wife,
Mm,
having beautiful friends, and, just doing what you love, which is coaching as well. So yes, that one would say that is a successful life, actually. And
mm,
yes, Patrick, I would say thanks for, sharing your story with us. And finally, I want you to, talk to someone out there because the sole purpose of my podcast is to give advice to young adults who are,
mm,
trying to learn and gain clarity. Right.
mm,
So if you could talk to someone in their 20s who feel anxious of they feel like they're left behind, right? They're anxious and they feel like they're falling behind. So what would you
mm,
say to people who fall in that category? Or should I say people who are always comparing themselves to other people?
mm.
Right.
Okay. So I'd first say that I was once in your shoes, and it is very normal. It's completely okay to be in that position. I think we can sometimes believe that we need to have life figured out from the start, but that's just not quite how this life works. So my advice would be, first of all, to say to you that it's okay to perhaps be feeling maybe a little bit lost, or perhaps be looking for more meaning, more purpose, to find life challenging. That's completely okay, and I think it's important to recognize that and not resist that. And then my second piece of advice would be follow your curiosity. So when we think about meaning and purpose, people find that very challenging. If I say, what's your purpose? A lot of people are like, Pat, I have no idea what my purpose is. And I say, okay, what are you passionate about? And they'll be like, Pat, I've got no idea what I'm passionate about. I'm like, okay, that's completely fine. What are you curious about? What piques your curiosity? And how about spending just 5 minutes exploring your curiosity each day? So for me, what did that look like? It was me discovering that podcast by Dr. Matt Walker on sleep back when I was tired, stressed, and time poor. I was curious about learning about wellness and about sleep. And I followed that curiosity, which led me to that podcast, listen to a little bit each day. And then I followed my curiosity for the next step, which was listen to more podcasts. And then it was doing some talks around well-being at PwC. And then it was a few steps later, leaving PwC and becoming a coach, and now coaching as a high performance coach. So you can only connect the dots once you look back, as Steve Jobs said. So what I always advise is don't try and think that we need to have it all figured out straight away, and that path needs to be completely clear from the get-go. My advice is always just to start small and to just follow your curiosity, because once you start following your curiosity, you're in motion, you're moving forward. And as we begin to follow that curiosity, the next steps begin to appear. So my advice is follow your curiosity.
Hmm. Follow your curiosity. Wow. Okay. So yes, thank you, Patrick. This has been absolutely insightful and deeply grounding, I would say. And yes, it brings me to the final segment of my podcast. I call it the rapid fire segment. You
Ooh,
could
okay.
either start with a word or a phrase starting now. So would you prefer morning workouts or evening workouts?
Morning, 100%.
Hmm. Okay. So what is your favorite Iron Man location?
Oh, these questions are so good, Joy. My favorite Iron Man location. Sorry, it's supposed to be quick fire. I'm getting distracted. I would say Salalah, Oman.
Hmm. Okay, okay. So what is one book everyone in their 20s should read?
The Untethered Soul.
Hmm. By the author?
I believe it's E.P. Singer, I believe, but we might want to double check that.
Okay, the untethered self.
The
All right. So
Untethered
what is
Soul.
right? So what is one habit that changed your life?
It's prioritizing sleep.
Okay. So what is one thing people should stop chasing?
So one thing people should do to stop chasing.
One thing people should actually stop chasing.
Ooh, that's such a good question. I would say stop chasing success without thinking whether it's what you actually want deep down.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. And then the next, what is one thing people should start prioritizing?
Discovering who they truly are.
Hmm. Right. And finally, what does living well mean in one sentence?
Doing work that you love, surrounded by people that you love in a healthy body.
Hmm. Right. Well, okay. So yes, thank you, Patrick. That is the end of our fire rapid fire segment. And yes, before you go, where can listeners get to, learn more about you, connect with you, and also learn about, the roadmap, basically.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Joy, for having me today. I really enjoyed it. And where can your listeners find us? So on
Right.
Instagram, we have our Wildest Dream account, which is Wildest Dream Official. I also have a personal Instagram account, which is High Performance Pat. And for our roadmap and many other free resources that we share online, you can find us at www.wildestdream.com.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Definitely checking out the Instagram. Our wildest dream. And yes, I'll put a link in the show notes so it's easily accessible for listeners. And yes, to my listeners, I would say thanks for tuning into Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Once again, thank you, Patrick. Do have a wonderful day ahead of you.
Thank you very much, Joy, and thank you to all your listeners as well for listening in. Have a great day too.
You're welcome. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.